welcome to another Checiegirl Creations video. So today I'll be doing a sketchbook spread and I'll be painting two of the jar terrariums I've made. Now I made these a little while back, you probably saw them on my social media posts. And I picked two of them to paint and I'll explain why in a little bit. So first I started off with a sketch, but to give me a bit of a guideline so my jar wouldn't be too wonky, I drew a straight line across the bottom of the page and then down the middle. Down the middle was just pretty much to make sure that they weren't too close together, because I knew I wanted to like add shadows like later on, and but the line across the bottom was to help try to make the bottom of the jar pretty straight, so then I would have a bit of a guideline, and that really did help. Because they're obviously not symmetrical, but that helped me be able to like freehand it a little bit better than just kind of going in blind. And like I pretty much just put down like the basic shape and then I refined it until I was happy with it. I don't have the whole sketching process because my head kept on getting in the way and the camera kept on like going out of focus, because I kind of started off pretty light when I sketched, and I'm using just a plain old mechanical pencil, nothing fancy, and a putty rubber or kneadable eraser to like rub out and adjust, just so it kind of gets in those smaller corners when you're able to knead it. And I'm using a Strathmore Vision mixed media sketchbook. Now the mixed media paper isn't great for watercolor, but it works pretty well. It warped quite a bit. You'll see me have to clip down the pages, but considering the amount of layers, I think it did pretty good. So I started off with a base layer. Like within the jar, I just wanted a very light blue, just so that it wasn't like the white of the paper. So I went in with a very light layer of ultramarine blue. And then the shorter, like more stout jar, I went in with a yellow ochre base for the lid, because that jar is covered in, jar lid is covered in twine. And then the taller one has a white ribbon around the rim, or the edge of the lid. Rim of the lid? Anyways, it's got a white ribbon going around, so I left that just the white of the paper, but the top of the lid is like a black metal kind of look. So I painted that black, and I mixed the black with ultramarine and burnt umber. I find that makes a really good black, or dark color, should I say. It's not completely black. You have to layer it up to get it nice and dark. So yeah, that made a really good dark color. And this is the base, so everything is very light. I just like, with watercolor you do kind of build in thin layers, so I wanted to start as light as possible because I knew I had a lot of layers to put on. And then within the jar, there's a gravel layer and then a dirt layer, and then all like the rocks and pebbles and sticks and plants and moss and stuff. So I went in, I can't remember all the colors exactly because I was just pretty much I didn't really swatch things like say I normally would. I just kind of went in. So the gravel layer has like yellow ochre, burnt umber, maybe a bit of burnt sienna, and some white. I used quite a bit of white watercolor in this one. And then the dirt layer has like burnt umber, again maybe a bit of burnt sienna, and some like ultramarine blue, just to kind of darken it up a little bit. And I didn't mind making the dirt layer pretty dark because it's a very dark dirt. So yeah, I didn't mind that. Oh, and I do have the jars like off to the side, so I was able to like constantly look at it to make sure that I was kind of getting things in the right place. I wasn't going for a very realistic like perfect rendition of it. I just pretty much wanted to just capture it in my sketchbook, since I really enjoyed making them. So I had them off to the side, and yeah, so I can continue like looking at it. So instead of using a reference photo, I thought it'll be a bit easier to paint from life. And then I started to just add like the bigger pieces, like the rocks, into like the painting. Now with the stouter jar, I didn't put the rock in the right place, so that kind of threw me off when I had to add the other elements. What I should have done, like what I did with the tall jar, is to put the rock a little bit higher up, but I kind of realized that when it was too late, And especially since this isn't watercolor paper, I can't really lift as well as I could say on watercolor paper. So I just decided to just leave that and try and yeah, it worked out in the end though, so it was all good. But yeah, when I made that mistake, I realized I had to look at it a bit closer just to get the position of like the main pieces, and then I can kind of wing it with the rest. And the colors I'm using, I pretty much use the same colors, just different amounts to mix. So again, ultramarine, I use that a lot. I stuck to a very warm color palette, well, somewhat. Burnt umber, a little bit of burnt sienna if I wanted a very warm rock. Some cadmium red sometimes, yellow ochre a lot, sap green, lemon yellow, cadmium yellow. I tried to mix as much of the greens as well because like they weren't all the same kind of green. And yes, you can just see me like just putting in the base layer for all the elements that's in there. And then I'm moving over to the tool jar, and I did the same thing. It's pretty much just the same techniques. And yeah, and like this went through a serious hot mess phase. I made a lot of mistakes. And I had to do a lot of layers, but it all turned out pretty good, actually. So it was interesting, and yeah, I really enjoyed doing that. I haven't really done much in my sketchbook recently. To be honest, I've been more focused on the terrariums because these aren't the first ones I've made. If you follow me on social media, you'll see that I made some larger ones. One for my picture plant, Venus flytrap, and a moss terrarium. So I have 3. And I really enjoyed making them, and everyone like on social media really liked it. So I thought I would make some smaller ones, since I enjoyed it so much. But with the smaller ones, I just stuck to like moss, because to be honest, the only reason I made terrariums is because like the coniferous plants prefer more of a boggy environment, and it would have been easier to like provide that in a terrarium than say just in a pot. So that's why I made the terrariums for them, and I also made a moss one because why not? And as well, I did want to kind of use that for like seedlings, because I've been like pollinating my Venus flytrap so that I can get seeds. So I'm looking forward to doing that as well. But at the moment, it's just a moss terrarium. It's got a little fisher guy like statue in there, and I absolutely love it. Yeah, I'm really enjoying looking at them, like looking at all the mosses grow and stuff, and yeah, it's really cool. So I made the smaller ones. I've made 3. I used a honey jar for the smallest one, a peanut butter jar for the stout one, and then a sun-dried tomato jar for the tall one. I just thought I didn't want to buy anything, and I thought this in a jar would look really cute. And oh, I forgot to say, actually, the reason I picked the stout jar and the tall jar is, one, I really like the shape of the stout jar. And then I also wanted to capture like the twine cover, because the cover was just this kind of blue plastic, and I covered it with twine so it would look a bit nicer, and I wanted to kind of capture that. And then with the tall one, I really like the way I put the fern in to kind of look like a tree next to like the moss and stuff, so it really does look like a mini world. And I really wanted to capture that as well. So that's why I picked those 2. I would like the small one as well, but those 2 are like my favorites. So that's why I picked it. But I might paint the small one again, not sure. I was in a bit of a rush to get this done for Friday. So I just stuck to 2. And this video is quite long. It took me a while. It took me like over 2 days. I'm not too sure how many hours, but it was many hours of just lots of layering and stuff. I'm a bit out of practice since I haven't really painted in a while. And it's why I think because I was working on the paper I was working on, it's not the best paper for watercolor. So it took me a while, but yeah, went through many hot mess phases, but it turned out really nicely. So at the moment you can see I've got quite a bit of like layers on the stout jar. You can just see I just keep on layering and layering, especially like the moss I found was really difficult to like picture the textures and stuff I was seeing, because I wanted to go in pretty loosely, but then that wasn't really working as well. Like the loose kind of wet on wet effect was working pretty well with the rocks. I pretty much stuck to that technique. And you saw me sometimes I had to like lift up some areas so I can put the rocks in, especially on the stout jar since I didn't place that larger rock properly. But yeah, trying to capture the moss was quite challenging. Just the textures, they're such fine details and fine textures, and trying to kind of translate that onto the paper. I didn't want it to just be like uber detailed. I still wanted to be pretty loose, but I still wanted to try to capture the texture. So there was lots of back and forth and lots of layering and trying to figure it out. But I was able to figure it out at some point. Like I did use a lot of white on these pieces, mostly because like at some point, you know, it got too dark for the watercolor to show up, so I had to mix some white into the mixes, and that did help a lot. It kind of made it a bit more gouache, I guess, because I wanted to use my gouache, but my gouache is more on the cheaper side, so it's a bit chalky, and I didn't want my pieces to look chalky, so I stuck with the watercolor and just used the white paint. I find the Winsor Newton Cotman white paint, it's Chinese white I think I'm using, is pretty good. I find it's pretty opaque considering it is like a watercolor, so that really helped me in adding the layers and stuff. But I kind of got the hang of kind of putting in the lichen, like there's this kind of like piece of lichen in the small, not in the small jar, sorry, the tall jar, the kind of bluish thing that you can kind of see at the back. I was able to get that in pretty well. That was pretty like simple. It's kind of like mini branches in a way, but again, I still struggle with the moss. But you know, I just kept on adding and adding and adding and trying to get the greens right. I also wanted to make sure that the greens and stuff stood out from each other, because they weren't all the same green. Like some are more cooler, some are warmer, some are brighter, some are darker, some are more of a yellowy kind of yellow ochre-y kind of look. So yeah, but it worked out in the end. And as well, adding lichen onto the sticks was kind of tricky. I don't know if it looks like lichen. I mean, I think it works, but I don't know if it actually looks like lichen on a stick. Yeah, that was really tricky as well. Because again, a lot of textures, and I was trying to because I can see all the textures, but I was trying my best not to obsess too much over it, so that I can still get the kind of loose look I was looking for with some details as well. So yeah. Ooh, and one thing I wanted to mention is that these jar terrariums are actually for sale. They're not on my shop yet, but you can email me if you're interested. So this is just for UK buyers. At the moment, I'm not able to ship it safely. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that, because I would like to reach more people in the UK, but even once I'm able to ship it, I won't ship outside of the UK. So this is just for the UK. So apologies for my international viewers. But yeah, if I will have my email down below, or you can message me on Instagram and Facebook, wherever you prefer. And I'll have just a little bit of information in the description, because since I'm not able to ship, it'll have to be picked up, so you'll kind of have to be in the area. So I'll just have a little bit of information in the description, and I will put up a photo now of the prices and sizes of the jars. It'll all be in that photo, so you can have a look at that and message or email me if you're interested. Because yeah, I think they're really fun. They're pretty low maintenance, because the terrarium, a closed terrarium, is supposed to be a closed environment. So once you've got enough water in there, it works well as a closed environment. You have the gravel, so it drains well, but then it'll kind of evaporate, condensate, and just kind of have that cycle going on within the jar. So you won't really have to open it too much. Once I've made these, I haven't had to open them to water them. I've had it for, I can't even remember when I made them. Well, I haven't had to water them. I can't remember the exact dates, but I haven't had to water them. And like little, as well, I've also put little springtails, which are just these tiny little insects that help to clean up like whatever mold that might crop up, and that'll also like provide the plants with the carbon dioxide that they need, and the plants will provide them with the oxygen they need. So yeah, it's really cool actually. Because like even if you're too far away to like get one of these, I would definitely say look into it, because I find it's really fascinating how you can have this little world in like a little box or a jar, like on your windowsill, and yeah, it's just this little world and you can look at it. And I found it quite fun to see what's kind of stowed away, because in quite a few of the mosses, like little seedlings of other plants, I'm not too sure what they are, have like popped up, especially in the larger ones. So I've really enjoyed like kind of seeing the little stowaway plants in there, and even like a couple millipedes have made their way in. Again, within the moss, I've spotted one in my Venus flycatcher terrarium, and like the stout jar one, which is actually perfect, because that again will help to like eat any like decaying plant matter and stuff like that. So again, it's just like another organism that will help the little world stay nice and healthy. So I think they're really cool. But with the coniferous ones, because theirs are open, because you know they need to catch flies and stuff, I do have to water those a little bit more regularly. So those I have to like pay attention to a little bit more. But yeah, I really enjoy them. I think it's really cool, and it's kind of dragged me down the rabbit hole, to be honest. Yeah. I did not realize it would be so dangerous to make a few terrariums, because now all I want to do is make terrariums actually, which is why I had to rush this video, because I was a bit behind schedule, because all I wanted to do was make terrariums. So yeah, I might make another one this weekend. I got a smaller jar, even smaller than the honey jar, so I might make an even smaller terrarium. I think that would be really cute. It's becoming a bit of an obsession. Yeah, I really like it. So yeah, so where am I? Yeah, so I'm still adding like the layers and stuff. You can see me going in with a little bit more white on the rocks especially. I didn't want it to look too dark, and the rocks were pretty light. I kind of used the rocks as like contrast to like all the like greenery and stuff. So I wanted to make sure they were nice and light, so that things will be able to stand out next to them. And I really like how the rock, that orangey rock in the tall one, turned out. I was really pleased with that. It looks pretty close to the actual rock. And you'll be able to see in the photo. Like, I'm really pleased with how that rock turned out. I was actually very pleased with myself. And I started off with like a larger brush, which you probably saw, and then I just kind of moved on to a smaller brush, because I can work with like the larger brush with point. But because it has quite a good point, but I didn't want the paintbrush to be holding too much water, especially when I wanted more of an opaque layer, because yeah, holding too much water would have it wouldn't have made. I was straying away from the wet and wet technique once I was adding details and stuff, so I use a smaller brush so I have a bit more control of the water. And you can see I've already added in the gravel and like fixed up the dirt, because once I had kind of established like the greenery and stuff, I wanted to make sure and get the gravel and the dirt in, since they are supposed to be like kind of underneath everything. So, and the gravel, it's just natural colored gravel, so I just pretty much use the same kind of colors I used for the base, but I just separated a little bit more so it would look like individual rocks. And then with the dirt, I just made it a little bit darker and richer, because there's a really nice dark rich dirt I used in the terrarium. And now you can see I'm able to start adding some more details to the plants, and you'll be able to see from the photos, like with the stout jar, what I'm adding details to now is actually a lot lighter. But I had kind of messed up, because it's supposed to be a kind of feathery moss, and I kind of messed up when I was adding the base layer, so I just had to kind of wing it. A lot of that happened. Some of it looks closer to like the original, and then some of it I just had to wing it just to make it look good. So yeah, there was a lot of winging it and just kind of making do. And you know, I'm wondering if I want to make some paintings of my larger ones, because I think it's a really nice way to kind of capture what they look like now, because since things will die down, some things might grow up, you'll like be able to see changes as time goes by in the terrarium. I think it'll be really cool to capture that. So I might make sure to do the honey jar one as well as the other terrariums, because like I'm already seeing a lot of changes in the carnivorous ones, especially the moss one. I'm seeing when new moss is coming up, and like I put some liverwort in like a few days ago, and it really likes the environment, and that's kind of getting really huge. Liverwort looks really weird. It's a very odd looking moss, and it really likes the environment, so it's growing quite quickly. So yeah, I think it's nice to document like living things like that, so then you can kind of look back and see what it looked like before compared to now. Like, let me know, like, if you have houseplants and stuff, do you like to document them in your sketchbooks? Because I've painted a few of my succulents. I have some new ones, which I think I would want to paint soon as well. Just to kind of like, you know, add them into the collection of succulent paintings. Though a lot of the time when I paint my succulents, it's very much just inspired by them. It's not like painting them exactly, so I might do that kind of like how I've done the jar terrariums. But let me know if you like to do that, and also let me know, have you kind of caught on to like the houseplant craze? Because my succulent collection is kind of getting out of hand. I have 2 carnivorous plants in their own terrariums, and I'll be growing some more Venus flycatcher plants for sure, because I'll be collecting seeds. I'm hoping my pitcher plant flowers, I don't know if it will yet. I really hope it does, because then I could get seeds from that too. Then I have a moss terrarium, and then I've made these jar terrariums. Though if they sell, I guess I won't keep them, but then I get to make more. So it's a bit of a rabbit hole. Yeah. But what was fun though is to kind of, I've always liked dabbling in different creative things. Like I've done textile stuff, I've done like different paint mediums on different surfaces, and it was really nice to like move my creativity to something very different to what I'm used to. Because with my succulents, I just pretty much put them in a pot, a nice looking pot, and then they're just there, and you know, I look at them and stuff. But this was just kind of like creating a mini world in a jar, kind of landscaping, making sure it all looks nice and works together. So that was really fun to kind of delve into a completely different creative field. Is that the word I'm looking for? Yeah, I think that's the word I'm looking for. It was really fun to do. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I think that's why it kind of, I want to do it so much, because I've been feeling kind of like bleh when it comes to making stuff. I don't really know why. I wouldn't say it's an art block, but I'm just not into what I probably should be making at the moment. But I really enjoyed this because it's something creative, and I think it was just because it was different. So yeah, so that's why I decided to paint them. Since I was so into the terrariums at the moment, I thought I would paint them. So it's like I'm still doing something with a terrarium, it's just in a different medium. So yeah, that's why I also decided to paint them. But yeah, let me know if you have any kind of houseplants or something. Is it a small amount? Do you feel like they're going to take over at some point? Are you running out of space? Because I am definitely running out of space. My terrariums can't even fit in my studio. They have to stay in the conservatory for now. Yeah. And I also want to make a couple like hanging setups for 2 of my succulents, because they want to hang down over the pot. So I have that on my to-do list. Maybe I can make that a video. If you would like to see me do that, let me know in the comments below, and I'll add that to like the video ideas list. So I'm adding even more details now. I'm able to kind of like add in a little bit more like shape and texture to the mosses. In these jar terrariums, it's pretty much just mosses. In the stout one, I have that little purple leaf plant. I can't remember the name, and I'll try to remember to put it up on screen. But it's just this little like tropical plant. I put that in there. It's actually a lot bigger in the stout one, but because again I got the rock in the wrong place and the wrong size, it had to get shrunk down a little bit. But yeah, that likes quite a nice humid environment, so I put that in. And then then it's just mostly moss and just some lichen, and the same for the tall one except for the fern, just moss and some lichen. So you can see I'm able to kind of like add in the textures now. You can see a little bit more definition. And like what I did was I put like a light layer of definition, and then I went in with like the shadows and stuff just to like add some darker details, and then I kind of go over with a little bit more lighter details, and then I can start to add the highlights. And yeah, so that's what I did, and I'm using a small brush here. It's a bold mare. I think it's like 3O or something. 3/0. I don't really understand the size guide on that paintbrush, but it's a very thin paintbrush. Just what I needed to add those details. And yeah, and then I could just start adding the highlights. And again, I use the Chinese white watercolor for the highlights. And when I added the highlights, again, I added highlights in a very stylized way. I wasn't worried about where light was coming from. I just kind of just added it as another layer of details, really. I like to do that when it comes to pieces where it doesn't matter too much where the light is coming from. I mean, the light would be coming from somewhere, but I decided to completely stylize my highlights and just kind of go crazy with it. And I'm always worried that I might go overkill, but it always seems to work out, which is pretty cool. So I pretty much just added details with the white to kind of just bring out more of the textures in the moss and stuff. And it was looking really good. Oh, and before I did that, I did go in and kind of add like the greens and stuff I had mixed. I added some white to it so that I can add like a subtle highlight before I went in with my white highlights. I like to do my highlights in levels, so kind of subtle with like the white kind of mixes in with the color just to kind of tint it. And then I'll go in with the white. And as well, since it's watercolor, it'll also kind of fade into it, so it won't be too stark. Because I wasn't really looking for a stark highlight with this. Since it's like on leaves and stuff, I wanted it to be subtle but still bright. So that's why I didn't use any gouache. So yeah, so I went in with the highlights. I think I'm actually getting ahead of myself. I did also have to do the lids as well. I darkened the like the black of the lid, and then I added the kind of like the dash marks in the ribbon, and then I went in as well to add the twine. I don't really know if it looks like twine by the time I'm finished with it. I like how it looks, but I don't know if I would say it looked like twine. So let me know in the comments below. Do you think it looks like twine, or does it just look like, I don't know, a patterned lid or something? I'm not too sure. And I didn't mind like the color pooling when I was doing the twine, because you know, twine isn't just one color. Even though it's just kind of that natural look, it's kind of varies, so I didn't mind that too much. And I just added a couple layers of that, and I mixed ultramarine with I mixed yellow ochre with a tiny amount of ultramarine blue and a tiny amount of burnt umber. I didn't want it to be too warm. And yeah, so that was for the twine lid. And then I went in and added all the highlights. I added highlights to the plants, to the rocks, to the lids themselves. And then once I'd added those, I also remembered that I had to add some to the jar. Because even though I had like outlined it and stuff, I outlined it pretty much with just with the black mix. I just watered it down to look grey. So I had outlined it so you can see like the definition and everything, but I wanted to also say that this is glass. So I added some highlights for the jar. Just kind of like on the top of the jar, like the top kind of corner, and in the bottom corner, to kind of show again that it's rounded. When you're trying to show that something's rounded, it helps to add highlights on like one corner. Well, I'm saying corner, but it's round, so bear with me, sorry. So yeah, I'll put a highlight on like the top quote unquote corner, and then the bottom quote unquote corner, and then maybe like somewhere else if needs be, just to kind of show that it is round. So that's why the light is kind of hitting it in different spots, if that makes any sense at all. I hope that makes sense. But you'll be able to see when I add it. And the watercolor wasn't really standing out as well as I wanted it to, so I did bring in my Royal Talons white gouache to add the highlights on the jars and as well as the lid, but I didn't add any on the plants or anything because I wanted to keep those highlights subtle. So yeah, and then I added some shadows, and the shadow color was mixed with ultramarine and burnt umber. I think that's all I mixed the shadow with, and I just kind of went in with a very light layer and just kind of dabbed in the color so it would get a bit darker closer to the jar. And you can kind of see, especially since ultramarine is a granulating color, it kind of separates. And I thought that just made the shadow look really cool. So I really liked the way it looked. And then I added my signature. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The shadow, I just kind of tried to make it a kind of roundish shape. I wouldn't really say it matches the jar perfectly, but there's just enough shadow just so it's grounded so that it doesn't look like it's floating. Again, it's very stylized, so yeah, just kind of when I add shadows to stuff, unless I'm trying to make it look realistic, I just kind of slap it down and hope for the best. So that's how I do my shadows, especially when it comes to inanimate objects. Yeah, with like a simple shape, I just slap it down, and that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope I didn't get too weird and rambly. It's a long video. It's like 35 minutes. Apologies for that, but I didn't want it to be too fast. And it is 2 paintings, so I guess that's probably why it's so long as well. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope I wasn't too rambly, and I hope I didn't stop. I hope I didn't stop making sense. Again, it's very late and it's a long voiceover. I'm not used to talking this long. So, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please do give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think in the comments. Which one is your favorite painting? Is it the stout jar? Is it the tall jar? I like both. I love both. And let me know which one is your favorite terrarium out of the jars and the larger ones, because I'll put those photos up as well. And yeah, please do subscribe if you are new to the channel and click that notification bell so you get notified whenever I upload a new video. I upload every Friday. And I think that's it. Again, comment if you have houseplants, how many? Is it getting out of hand? And do you document them in your sketchbook or journal, or however, do you document them at all? So thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!